What's up, gamers? DreamcastGuy here, and today we're talking about PlayStation because Sony has just released some detailed financial reports as to how good or bad they're doing. Now, it does seem like, for the most part, the PS5 is in a very healthy spot. They're selling games, they're prepping for some secret acquisitions, they just announced a new CEO, so for the most part, things are good, but there is some sprinkling of negative that people seem to be laser focusing upon. So let's discuss. Hi, I hope you're having a great day. If you could, give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. So we're going to dig through the entire financial report because it is actually pretty in-depth, and there is certain parts of it I do want to sort of break down and explain to you guys. But here's the main chart I feel like people are kind of roasting, if I'm being honest. PS5 sales are down 29% year over year in the recent quarter. Sony said they were trying to sell 21 million units. They ended up selling 20.8 million units in all of 2023. So honestly, that's still a pretty big sales chunk. I mean, it's difficult to disregard 20 million console sales in a single year, but apparently they're trying to sell at least 18 million units this year. So people are kind of saying, all right, well, how bad is this? A lot of people are saying, okay, how does this compare to Microsoft? Of course, Microsoft is doing even worse. The Xbox is terrible. Obviously, Tom Warren loves to try and spin any Sony news to be as negative as possible. Now, I'm not even bagging on Tom Warren. Apparently, this guy doesn't like me. I don't know, a couple years ago, I said this guy sucks Phil Spencer's toes, and they sent that to him, and he got real pissed. So, Tom, if you see this, no offense. I'm just saying that you're definitely an Xbox aficionado, but I have seen people explain the fact that this being down is not necessarily the instant doom and gloom that people are trying to paint it on certain corners of the internet. They're definitely not in crisis mode. They barely sold under their own internal projections, so that's pretty good. Also, the longer a console is out, typically year over year, you see a slight decline where, the first year, every single person that's been saving up, that's hyped for it, usually that first year is the most blockbuster, but things were very peculiar with the PlayStation 5 and with the Xbox Series X because during the pandemic, it came out in 2020, and there was extreme console shortages. So what's weird is that for 2020, they were not able to sell as many as they wanted. 2021, they finally hit what I felt like was their original attended slate of production. But as time's gone on, I feel like everybody that wants a PlayStation 5 can now get it. I think not only is 21 million consoles sold a huge number, but I think it's a testament to the fact that now PlayStation is finally hitting its production stride. But here's a part of the game that I think sort of worries me the most. This entire financial report, we're not going to go through all these numbers because honestly, there's a ton of it. But the two parts of it that were the most interesting to me is that they did say, hey, we're trying to pivot our focus because right now we are not expecting to sell any first-party games for all of fiscal year 2024. Now, keep in mind, this is a financial report. You can't lie on these. You can skew the numbers a bit and try and trump up certain figures over other figures, but they're straight up saying they're not going to be launching any major first-party games from April all the way to April 2025. So that does suck. Obviously, I'm a big fan of PlayStation exclusives because they have done good ones. God of War, Uncharted, The Last of Us, that stuff has been fantastic. And while I am excited about the success of something like Helldivers 2, I want to see that big AAA blockbuster power. Now, additionally, you do notice they actually talk about the fact that they're working on an acquisition budget. Look at this. Sony Group is also setting aside $11.5 billion for investments and acquisitions over the next few years. Now, that is company-wide. I think sometimes in the talk about console wars and stuff, people kind of forget that obviously Microsoft, Nintendo, and Sony are very different beasts. Nintendo just makes games. Sony makes stuff like laptops, cell phones, TVs. They make movies. There's Sony Pictures, and of course the PS5, whereas Xbox makes Windows, they make Word, they make terrible texting apps. So everybody kind of has their side projects. If they're setting aside $11.5 billion, this could be them buying music studios. It could be them trying to do all sorts of stuff. But from my own reading of these financial reports, I do think those acquisitions are probably going to be them buying game studios. Now, is that good or bad? Honestly, the closures of the Xbox game studios recently, the fact that Microsoft keeps buying stuff like, obviously the Bethesda buyout, the Activision Blizzard buyout, and now those studios are getting shut down and torn apart piece by piece. As much as I think PlayStation is better run than Xbox, I still don't think I'm a big fan of the idea of PlayStation. I think buying exclusivity deals, I think I'm a big fan of. I think I'm pretty against now. I don't think that Sony should be buying studios. I'm not sure anybody should be buying studios at this point, but here we go. So we're now at a total of 59.3 million consoles sold. That's not shipped. That's 59.3 million consoles sold, which is truly insane. PS5 is now slightly below the PlayStation 4 sales. Launches aligned. The PS4 at this point had sold 60 million. So literally 700,000 below one of the biggest consoles of all time. Now, I've mentioned this in videos a while back, but I still think the Xbox One, the freaking PlayStation 4 generation, the 7th gen, I think was fascinating because video games became suddenly much more mainstream. It did feel like a lot of people started to game for the first time ever, starting with the PlayStation 4 generation. Just bored dudes in their 20s picking up a console in college for the first time. So the fact that the PlayStation 5 is actually keeping up with the PS4 sales even this much, to me, I do genuinely think that is a testament to just the overwhelming popular of the PS5. So here's an interesting part of it, though, is that it sounds like they want to attempt something slightly different for the rest of this console generation, and they said something I've never seen Sony state before, which is that they're trying to make great games. Okay, that's the typical PR speak, but they want to try and increase console sales. Obviously, they're trying to make more first-party software and PC development, but they also said they're trying to get more player engagement, more people to try and just spend more time on the console, whether it is these first-party games like Horizon or third-party stuff. Now, the reason I think this is interesting is because I do think this is sort of like, it feels like you can feel the motif, the motivations of Xbox, Nintendo, and PlayStation beginning to take these separate lanes. Xbox just wants you to sign up for Game Pass. Nintendo just wants you to buy anything. First party, a physical edition, an indie. Nintendo just wants you to buy anything so you can play it on the go and have fun. Whereas PlayStation, they specifically, even if they won't come out and say it, I do think that the success of Helldivers, they actually announced its specific number, and so it's already sold 15 million copies, so it's already one of the biggest PlayStation games of all time, and that launched both on Steam and on PS5. I think they're realizing that, okay, if we're going to try and make these perpetual living universes with updates and season passes and downloadable content and microtransactions and stuff, you have to make a game that's not just good, but is actually addictive. I think PS5 is starting to be them sort of testing the waters on making games that are truly addictive. Look, I love PlayStation games, but think about it. A lot of these are very one and done. Like, I'm not even being a hater. I've beaten a lot of these games multiple times. I've played Horizon 3 times. I've played God of War 3 times. I've played Last of Us about 15 times. But my point is the fact that these single player, narrative-heavy games, most people are going to beat them once. And while they do get that upfront $70 profit, what happens after that? I think PlayStation is attempting to sort of pivot towards the idea of, okay, how can we keep you engaged longer than just buying the game and maybe buying some DLC? But like these whole financial reports, I think show the fact that PlayStation is definitely in a good spot. They're definitely selling a crazy amount of games. This is the wildest one. Okay, so Pio here left out a word, but this is games sold. In the last quarter, so just from January to March, PlayStation sold 72.6 million games. Holy heck, 12.3 million of those were first-party sales. Holy heck, monthly active users, 110 million. This is staggeringly big. Like, actually seeing those numbers, I mean, it boggles the mind. Even reading it still blows my mind. So they sold 28 million copies. Even looking at those numbers, even trying to fathom that scale, it just doesn't make sense. The fact that they sold 20 million consoles and then 72 million games in 3 months. What in the heck? The power of PlayStation, I think this is where Xbox is getting jealous, because while Xbox is getting those play numbers, they're getting downloads, they got 10 million people to install Starfield. Who knows how many people actually beat it, because the game is about as fun as watching paint dry. But my point is the fact that PlayStation is definitely stacking up some raw profit that is truly, truly staggering to try and comprehend. All right, last slide. Take Him says this: PS5 sold a huge amount, even comparing it to the PlayStation 4, despite the fact that the PlayStation 4 by this point had a $100 price cut. Sony is forecasting that gaming is going to rise to the next 3 years to be recordly breaking good, but Helldivers 2 is the fastest selling PlayStation game ever since it moved 12 million copies in the first 12 weeks. Anybody who wants to try and doom and gloom PlayStation and say that they're not releasing enough, I think that I am definitely on the team where I wish PlayStation would release more. I'm definitely one of those hardcore gamers that wants there to be more big releases, and the fact that we're not going to get a single first-party game for this entire fiscal year definitely sucks, but I'm still curious to see how this pivot shakes out. If these rumored live service games that PlayStation is working on, and of course their typical big first-party stuff like the next Spider-Man, there's rumors of the new God of War, there's talk about a Lego Horizon Zero Dawn game being made, which I don't even know what to think about that. I think that PlayStation is definitely still in a healthy spot, but I'm still in a spot where I'm curious how this generation gets looked back upon. I think everybody loved the PlayStation 4. That thing was huge. It was getting constant great games. Whereas the pacing of the PS5, it's definitely different. But how do you guys feel about the current state of the PS5? I see a lot of people in the comment section over the course of the last couple of years saying, I want a PS5, I can't buy it. Then I saw a bunch of comments saying, I bought a PS5 and now I can't keep up with the games. And now I feel like I see a lot of people saying, where is Sony? Where's the next PlayStation showcase? Where is a slate to tell me why I should be hyped about my expensive purchase? Okay, but tell me your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe if you haven't already. And please do me the biggest favor of all and keep dreaming. Oh, man. Oh, Tom Warren. I'm sure you don't suck toes. Or maybe you do, but not Phil Spencer's toes. No. God, never Phil Spencer's toes. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.